Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of the Judge Hubert Radio Hour on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. Find them at artistfirst.com. And now your host, judge and author, the Honorable Judge Hubert.
Thank you, Scott. Good evening, everyone. We want to just say hello to all of those in our listening audience out there. Hope that you're having a great day and a great week. You know, this time is marching on. My Lord, we are in the month of August already. The second half of the year is rolling along, and it's exciting as we look forward to seeing what good things are in store for us. You know, when we think about it, I want to just, of course, always want to take a moment to welcome our friends and family and listening audience from all throughout Radio Land. And, of course, on the World Wide Web. Call a friend and have them to listen in, join in with us here on the Judge Hubert Radio Hour. You know, while our show is relatively new, you may go online and listen into any of our former shows that were produced over the past year and a half. And, of course, listen to some of the interviews on some of the contemporary issues, such as the attack on critical race theory, how our teachers are working to deal with the various book bans in our schools, and a host of other numerous topics. You know, our show seeks to educate our listening audience and to address many of today's social, educational, and judicial issues. You know, in the words of one of my many mentors, education is the key to being free and staying free. You know, and secondly, never go to bed as ignorant as you were when you got up this morning. Every day you should learn something new. And, of course, in the days and times that we're living in, especially here in my home state of Florida, you know, we have so many things happening with our governor who seems to be doing his best, as he says, to promote a theology of sorts, a political theology where he wants people to, as he says, to where, as he calls it, where woke goes to die. Where, you know, I always ask people, what is the opposite of woke? Is sleep. And while physical sleep is good for the body and mind, being awake allows us to get things done. So call a friend and let them know that the Judge Hubert Radio Hour is on. And we're going to see if we can't share some information with you tonight. We've got a great guest that's with us tonight. And we know that he is very learned, very, very special guy that I've deemed to be a friend. And I know that while I always tell him he's from that younger generation, I can tell you that he's a combination of what we might call old school and new school in terms of his getting things done. And certainly he is one of those who is indeed a difference maker. So without any further ado, let me go ahead at this time and welcome to our show none other than Dr. Chester Wilson. Dr. Chester Wilson, he's a great gentleman, one that I know that our listening audience will love. Guy's got a lot of energy. He's always on the move, doing some wonderful things here in the state of Florida, but not just limited there. He travels across this country and, of course, is impacting the lives of not only the current generation, but of those future generations that are continuing to unfold. So let me just take a moment and welcome Dr. Chester Wilson. Welcome, Dr. Wilson.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and I look forward to engaging in conversation with you tonight.
All right. Fantastic. Fantastic. You know, Dr. Wilson, you know, of course, we've been very fortunate that we've had a chance to know you for a number of years and to watch your work in a variety of different fields. I mean, folks, you're talking about somebody that takes advantage of the 24 hours in every day. I mean, he's busy doing a variety of different things. And, of course, that's why it's important and how critical it is to getting things done. So Dr. Wilson is a native Floridian and one, again, that we're glad to have the acquaintance of and for the work that he's doing. So let's get going here by telling our listening audience out there a little bit about your background and maybe talk a little bit about some of your growing up days and some of the things that have led you to become Dr. Chester Wilson.
That might be a little loaded there. I'm from the city of Palatka, Florida. I came to Daytona Beach in 1999 with a new wife at that time. And when we relocated to Daytona Beach, we supported each other and put each other through college. I received my undergraduate degree at Bethune University, and then moved into St. Leo University for my master's degree, ultimately ending up at Nova Southeastern University, earning my doctorate of education degree. During that time, I was working in social services, where I had been working for a local treatment agency specializing in substance use and mental health. And throughout that time, I worked my way through the system of care, ultimately becoming the vice president of performance improvement for that agency before I left in 2018 and taking over another agency as CEO. So currently right now, one of the roles that I have is CEO of a behavioral health care organization where we provide substance use, mental health, psychiatric, medication-assisted treatment, and prevention services. In another hat, I have a training center that I named CW Training Center, a CW consulting firm. And what we do there is provide training services for individuals who are seeking certifications or just seeking to enhance their skill set so that they can become a better version of themselves and be more productive and move up on their jobs. So we hope to hit the core where they can just basically improve their skill set. And of course, if that's not enough, I've also spent time as a college professor. I had the privilege, the honor of returning to my alma mater to teach at Bethune University, where I taught in the Department of Criminal Justice, and I also taught in the leadership program for graduate studies. Currently, right now, I'm still serving as an adjunct for Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, where I'm slated to return there in the fall in just a few weeks. So there'll be another thing added back to the plate again. So I'm just excited. I'm excited that I get to use my gifts daily. You know, I oftentimes tell people some people get to either serve in their purpose or their passion. And I'm fortunate enough where I get to have my purpose and my passion every day and love doing it.
Wow. Wow. You know, as I'm sitting here listening to you and talking about all the various things that you're doing, you take me back to my growing up days. There used to be this hamburger joint in my hometown, and it was called Royal Castle. And Royal Castle had its moniker as being open 29 hours a day. Now, we all know it's only 24 hours a day, but Royal Castle promoted itself as being open for 29. In other words, it was able to continue to do things. It stayed open longer than the normal regular day. And of course, for the amount of things that you just talked about, what you're doing and what you're involved in, obviously, you got to be working at least 29 hours a day. So my hats off to you for all the wonderful things that you're doing, the lives that you're touching, and of course, as you said, it'd be a combination of being able to work in your purpose and your passion.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that. You talked about, you know, growing up, and for those that may not be aware, Palatka is roughly about 45, 50 miles away from the city of Daytona Beach, where your undergraduate school, Bethune-Cookman, is located. Now, what's interesting about that is, and the parallels that exist, is that the founder of Bethune-Cookman, none other than Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, actually started her first school in Palatka as a young 28-year-old woman who basically started what we would call today a daycare or preschool. She started in Palatka, but then later, because she had heard that there was that the reception that she received in Palatka was not as should I say, not as warm as she desired. And she actually ended up moving to Daytona Beach, roughly 45 minutes away, because there was a railroad. They were building the Florida East Coast Railroad, and Daytona was one of the hubs at that time. And she actually moved here, and that's where she launched her school. So in many sense, you guys have a similar launching pad. You born in Palatka and moved to Daytona to go to school. She started her school in Palatka, but ultimately transferred it and of course, launched Bethune-Cookman, what became Bethune-Cookman here in Daytona Beach.
Yes,
that's an interesting parallel.
Yes.
Wow. Well, When we think about some of your journey, including your growing up days and some of the things that happened, who were some of the people who influenced you in terms of, and how did you, on this mission, on this passion that you have for life itself?
As I reflect on that question, and I'm oftentimes asked that, I have been fortunate enough throughout my life to just be surrounded by good people. And little did I know at the time that being surrounded by just such a diverse group of people shaped who I ultimately am today. I can remember growing up in Palatka and being in my home church, and there were the men in the church who worked in all types of different fields. One worked at a steel corporation, one worked in farming, one drove buses, one worked at the paper mill in Palatka. And these men became very important to my upbringing, where they were helping to mold me through church activities. Now, I was raised up with my father in the home, and unfortunately, my father did a whole lot of drinking growing up. Although he was present, he provided for us. When it came to those social supports, he wasn't there for those parts of it. But I'm grateful for the roots that he provided for me in steering me and raising me, to be the man that I am today. But when it comes to my outlook for life, I just happen to have a whole lot of people around me. There was an alpha man in Palatka by the name of Abe Alexander, who was my music teacher in grade school. And little did I know that he was an alpha man at that time, but I can remember he was the first male figure that I saw as a teacher, especially as a black man. And he would discipline and love us at the same time, even though we didn't call it that back then. And so when I just look throughout my matriculation, I've had so many people who've been instrumental in my life and just helped me along the way. After I left Palatka, I came to Daytona Beach, and I just gained a whole new set of fathers, because at the time I came in 1999, my dad passed away 3 weeks before I got married. So after I got married, I relocated to Daytona Beach, and my father-in-law has been there since day one. I met people like you, Judge, who took on a father role. Just so many people in my church and other people who took me in as a son and continue to instill values in me that where my father left off when he passed away. And so I've just been fortunate that I've had such a diverse group of people that it shaped my life one day when I said, why do I have to pick one thing and do it? What if I have many diverse skill sets that I want to do? And, I've been told all my life, pick one thing and be good at it. But I see all of these men around me who are diverse. So why can't I just hone in on all of these various skill sets that I have and give those back and help other people? And I'm glad that I listened to that inner man, having been surrounded by so many positive men in my life. And now I'm able to do that and not just lean on one particular skill set.
Wow. Amen. You made me think about the old phrase that if you can see it, you can be it, in terms of the people that you model yourself after. And, again, it's so important for those in our listening audience to understand the importance of role models and how they impact the lives of young people. So often we hear people say today's times that we're the role models. I mean, I used to remember when Charles Barkley, the NBA player and TV commentator, would say that he's not a role model. And in effect, what he was saying was that your role models are those people that are in your house, or those people that are standing in front of you in a classroom or in your neighborhood. But in effect, we all become role models. And again, the idea that if you can see it, you can be it. And so it really lends itself to the importance of making sure that we always are on guard as we're dealing with young people, that they're watching us, and they literally are cloning us, you might see. So we have to always be careful what we say and what we do, because we don't ever know who's watching us. And of course, it's our process. Yep. Now, one of the things you made a comment about a moment ago was how your dad was, while in the home, was not as present, but because I believe you said he spent so much time involved with drinking alcohol. And of course, one of the things that I believe of my earliest memory of you was when I was on the bench and you were working with an organization that was Stuart Marchman. And they, of course, were an organization that dealt with helping people to deal with substance abuse issues, particularly drugs and alcohol, and even down to later on picking up the importance of mental health. How did that become a part of your work and a part of your driving passion?
So you're right. In 1999, when I did come to Daytona Beach, I started working for Stuart Marchman at that time, where I was a youth counselor. And working as a youth counselor, I began to work with troubled teens who were affected by primarily at that time substance use issues. And so those teens were sentenced by the court to treatment. And during that time, I developed skills for counseling, which ultimately, after finishing my academic degree at Bethune-Cookman, I went on to study to become a substance use counselor. And after being certified, did some work as a counselor where I was helping, other individuals. And little did I know at that time, and I really can't say that because of my experience growing up, that it shaped that I wanted to do that. Because, I'll tell you an interesting fun fact about me is although my dad drank excessively, I've never had an alcoholic drink. So it's definitely two ends of the spectrum when you look at the both of us. But, he did. He drank a lot. And, I can remember my mom trying to cover for him in order not to let us know and know the impact that it was having, when he was drunk. But, even for me, he still taught me how to drive and took me fishing and all those things that a father would do. However, the experiences of growing up with a father who abused alcohol shaped my ability to be able to help other people. Because not only did I see it in the home, I grew up in a neighborhood that was dominated by drug use and mental health issues, even though we didn't know what it was at that time. And so I use those skills, I use those experiences to provide services for others.
Well, we're hearing a lot these days about the importance of mental health treatment, and whether we're talking about as a way of dealing with drugs and alcohol, or whether we're talking about what some might say some of the driving forces behind gun violence in many of our cities throughout this country, the importance of mental health, and how do we help people who themselves may be dealing with these kinds of issues, and what are some of the things that come to mind for you as you think in terms of addressing those types of individuals?
I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is access to care. Being in the mental health field and being a service provider for those individuals that are affected by mental health, we have a wait list. There's just not enough counselors throughout. There's not enough counselors around. And we have individuals who are in crisis, who are in immediate need, having acute needs, and the wait list is 4 to 6 weeks or even months for other places, especially rural areas. And so when I look at mental health, we have a perfect imbalance of need versus providers. And until we fix that and ensure that we have resources and that we are recruiting people to be in this field, it's kind of like teachers. With so many things going on, my fear is that we're going to either continue to see that going on, or it's going to escalate until we get people who have the skill set. And that's just not throwing counselors out there and putting people in the field who we believe can, or just nice people. You have to have a skill set in order to be able to provide therapy and get to the root of the problem with individuals in an effort to invoke change in their life.
I read about, and we see that some communities, Orlando in particular, launched out what they call a parallel plan whereby now they indicated that many of their officers who are called out 911, they show up at at homes, and some of the most dangerous times for them, of course, are those moments when they're called into domestic violence situations. And they're now starting to bring in mental health counselors almost as ride-along partners under certain circumstances. And we noticed that it seems to be another way of trying to, one, maximize the resources that are available, but also trying to target those individuals who need the kind of mental health care, as opposed to having specifically having just an officer show up and, where they come out with guns blazing and, handcuffs and lock people up, or run the risk themselves of watching something escalate into possibly a setting where someone gets hurt or killed. What are some of those kinds of comment for a moment, if you may, on the importance of those kinds of resources being made available in the law enforcement field, coupling the role of the mental health counselor with law enforcement?
I think that is a very important need within law enforcement. And I will also preface that we have to be careful that mental health counselors are not law enforcement officers. So we can't send them into dangerous situations and expect that they can invoke change. And if you think about it this way, Judge, when we counsel individuals, we're sitting in a controlled environment. We're sitting in a safe environment, because that way we have the ability not to have our emotions running high and our adrenaline running, where we can really methodically address the issues that's there. So I don't believe that the issue of putting counselors in those types of situations, especially if they have no criminal justice or law enforcement training, is a good decision to make. However, what I will say is that there needs to be counselors available as resources, that when we get the person to a state where a counselor can intervene, that's important to have one available. And most importantly, to have training for officers. I will brag on the Volusia County Sheriff's Office as well as the Daytona Beach Police Department here in the Daytona Beach area, because both of these departments have utilized me and other resources for years to come in and provide mental health counseling to the officers. Right now, as early as next week, I will be back. Sheriff Chitwood hired me some years ago to provide mental health and diversity services to law enforcement officers. And his words to me were, I want to ensure that my officers are trained and also that they don't become the next national media story. And so every officer that's hired in the Volusia County Sheriff's Office comes through my class. I have the opportunity to train them in mental health services as well as diversity services, but most of all, not only to understand mental health with other individuals that are out there, but also understand the mental health, the impact of mental health on themselves in that role, how to interact and how to react to people who are in crisis, the resources that are available, how to properly evaluate individuals. So I get the opportunity to share with them what I've learned over the last 25 years of working in this field, so that when they do come in contact, not if, when they do come in contact with an individual that are in crisis, that they know how to do that. And, the same is true for Chief Jakari Young, where I go in and I get to provide training for his officers here in Daytona Beach. So I'm happy to see on our local level that our police administration addresses that issue head on and understands the importance of mental health within law enforcement officers.
On that field, we see in instances of mass shootings where we have seen the response back oftentimes from some of the elected officials. Let's just say many of our congressional representatives who choose, instead of tackling and implementing safe measures of gun control, that they will quickly say that, guns don't kill people, people do. this was a mental health issue as opposed to a gun issue. And certainly there are those advocates and some people who say that they are more focused upon the rights of the Second Amendment than they are about trying to make sure that people live because, quote unquote, the government's trying to take our guns away from us. But yet they quickly blame these kinds of situations upon people having, they had a mental health breakdown or they got mental health issues. And we're seeing those kinds of things play out all around the country. But to what extent, from your vantage point, do you see the interplay between mental health challenges and the use of gun violence?
Well, I think that both of those are an issue in itself when it comes to individuals who are in crisis. If they're having an acute mental health issue, the worst thing that we can do is put any weapons in their hands. In fact, that's part of one of the evaluation criterions that we review. Do you have access to weapons? Why do we want to say that? It's because if they're already in crisis and you give them weapons, they're in danger of harming themselves or in danger of harming someone else. So it's imperative to make sure that they don't have access to them. So I don't understand how we as professionals evaluate them to ensure that they don't have access to weapons, but then we turn around as a society and make weapons accessible to them. The two don't go hand in hand. And so I think it's important for the government, since we always say we believe in listening to the professionals, listen to us and understand that accessibility is a big part of the problem when it comes to dealing and treating with people with mental health. What we don't want to do is give them the vehicle to do something deviant and then turn around and try to treat them after the fact. Well, if we listen to the professionals beforehand and take precautionary measures, then we can get in and do treatment before it becomes a catastrophic event. The other piece that I think that the government needs to understand is the difference between a mental health crisis and just a behavioral issue. Because a lot of times we're screaming mental health when the person just may be exhibiting deviant behaviors. There are people out there who kill people because they make bad decisions and bad choices, and it doesn't have anything to do with them having a mental health diagnosis. But if we have officials who are not trained or understand diagnosing and assessment, then they'll put a mental health label on everyone and everything and make you believe that that's what it is. You give a criminal an opportunity to be a criminal, they're going to commit a crime. This is why we have lawyers, judges, police officers, and all of these people to implement laws to stop those things. But what we're doing as a society is we're giving them a tool, a mechanism to do those things, and then we're giving them an excuse for doing it. And that's not to say that I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That's not to say that individuals don't have mental health issues and make those decisions, but also understand that there also are just criminals out there. This is why we have courses such as criminology, crime and crime causation.
It's interesting as you say that it certainly enlightens more and more, which is sort of a contrary. We've got a governor here in Florida who is completely, some might say, to the right of Attila the Hun, and he continues to push policies that seem to be directly counter to what you just explained. For example, this past legislative session, he led the effort that successful, if you want to call it, from their getting it done. But they actually, our legislature passed a bill eliminating the need for going through the concealed weapons training and necessary in order to purchase a weapon. They, in essence, made Florida, he likes to call Florida the free state of Florida, but in being the free state of Florida, they have put more guns out on the streets now because when we had to go through our training some years ago, we had to go sit through a class. We had to basically understand the importance of in obtaining we had to go through certain additional steps in order to be able, including a background check, in order to be able to obtain the concealed weapons permit. Well, they have, of course, made the quote-unquote free state of Florida such, as he calls it, that it made it much easier for people to obtain weapons without the necessity of these background checks. And it basically, in effect, eliminated the need for a concealed weapons permit background check. And in other words, there are more. And then as a result of that, they put more guns out on the streets in the state of Florida here in the last couple of months. And what you have just pointed out is that with people who may have issues with their mental health, you basically are making it a lot easier for them to gain access. And Florida's already been, unfortunately, we've had some mass shootings that took place. One that down in Broward County at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. I'm trying to remember what the number was of kids that were killed, but it was a major mass shooting. And then, of course, in Orlando with the Pulse nightclub shooting, and which I believe was over 50 people that were killed. And so you've got more and more indications that we need to hold people accountable, particularly those who may have some mental health issues. But it seems like, on the other hand, our governor pushed to make Florida more, and God forbid that the next step will be that Florida becomes like an open carry state where, in effect, we become like the Wild Wild West, and people will be strapping their guns on the side and walking in and out on a daily basis, and which only lends itself to me like the old West days, and it leads me to believe that, wow, people will be trying to settle their differences by just pulling their 6-shooter off their side, and we again, we see it.
We see it now. We've had so many incidents where guns have been placed into the hands or accessible to the wrong people. And I mean, we've gotten so desensitized to mass shootings that they're not even displaying them all on the news. We only hear about the worst of them. Mm-hmm. And we have seen mass shootings where it has targeted our elderly, targeted our children. And nothing has yet made us implement laws where it becomes more stringent to obtain those firearms. Here in Florida, we did the opposite of that. Now, I'm not sure that you know, but one leg of my business is I have a security firm and a private investigation firm that I run. And I have security officers out there. Not only do I have unarmed security officers out there, I have armed security officers out there. And so having armed security officers out there, one of the things that would keep me awake at night is that I have a security officer out there who will pull their firearm and discharge it too soon, or when it's not warranted. Now, these are people that are required to take training every year. They're required to go through, at least working for me, go through intensive training, continuous training. I have a SWAT officer and a Volusia County Sheriff's administrator who is one of the instructors for my course. So I look at them and I say, I don't want them to pull that firearm inappropriately and discharge it. And these are hired law-abiding citizens who are hired to protect the grounds that they are working on. And I feel that way about officers who work for me, who are working under my name. Imagine making these guns available and accessible to people who didn't go through the training that these officers are going through. That should be scary to anyone. And the reason that I really can't put unarmed security officers out there is because I can't, in good faith, put them out there working at night, even at a mall, which is one of the locations that we provide security services for, where they are unarmed, but our world has given the rights of anyone to carry a firearm, whether they are, and think about how backwards this is for Florida. As a security officer, you have to go through a training to carry a firearm, but we'll give it to any citizen with no training.
Yeah, I could think of a few phrases from some of my mentors that might kind of freak a few folks back, but they would say in their words, they would say that's ass backwards. That's what they would say.
It makes no sense.
Mm-mm.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, but as part of this so-called free state mentality, they are pushing that, and because they say, guns don't kill people, people kill people, but the guns become an instrument which are useful, and not only an instrument to kill one person or shoot one person, but they now define mass shootings as any time there are at least 4 or more killings. And like you say, we can't seem to go through a weekend without there being somewhere in this country there is some type of major mass shooting. And like you said, now they don't talk as much about the smaller numbered situations like that. It's almost like if it's in the range of 5 to 10, that doesn't make the national news as much as those ones that are quote unquote much more than.
Right.
It's really a sad state of affairs. And so for those of you all who are in the listening audience, please don't hesitate to make your thoughts known to our elected officials, to our governor in particular, who seems to be wanting to take what Florida's doing and make it a part of his presidential run. And of course, again, there's so many different facets of that. And there's some other areas, of course, that you find yourself sort of drawn into this whole political landscape. I mean, you just got back from Dallas, and
correct,
where you were a part of the conversation that took place from, in fact, something else that we share in common, and of course, that is the, as we often used to say, first of all, Black Greeks, the organization known as Phi Alpha fraternity, and both being the leaders that Alpha represents. You're president of a local chapter, but as part of what you did, you worked with the conversation that took place there in Dallas, and where our fraternity became the first group to literally begin to boycott the state of Florida by canceling its convention in 2025 because of the manner by which our governor and the state has begun to treat Black people in the state. So talk, for example, about that conversation and how did they, the leadership of Phi Alpha fraternity, how did they reach that decision to jump out front and be the leaders in basically saying, no, enough is enough?
So we already know that Governor DeSantis was vocal and about changing how history is viewed among a litany of other bad decisions that have been made. But in this latest string of attacks, as we call it, he changed the education curriculum and how, particularly how slavery or how history will be taught as it relates to slavery. And what comes out of that is there's a portion in that curriculum that says slaves benefited from slavery. And I mean, no one ever asked, any Black people, how they would feel about that. It was just a decision was made. And what happened was Dr. Willis Lonser, who is the current president, the general president of Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, met with the board, and they decided to take a stand and say, if this is how you are going to treat and view African Americans, we're not coming to pump approximately $5.5 million into your community, into your state, with our brothers coming into the communities attending conferences. And even just in our last convention that just left Dallas, we had over 5,200 brothers in attendance. And so the general board looked at this and said, we're not coming to Florida as long as you're creating policies that hurt our people. So these same people that you are creating policies that are in direct opposition of what they stand for and what they do, why would we bring them to pump money into the economy when when the message you're sending is you don't value them? And so they made that decision to pull out of the general convention until Florida looks at what it's doing and makes some changes.
Well, not only is, once again, Phi Alpha is, of course, taking the role as leaders in this on this particular topic area. I know that the NAACP National Office has issued a travel alert for Black citizens coming into the state of Florida, particularly during the summer travel season, basically warning people of the kinds of mistreatment that our government in Florida was promoting through our governor, and whether you're talking about banning what they refer to banning critical race theory, banning books in school, in elementary, middle, and high school, limiting the conversations about issues such as the LGBTQ community, and basically even denying medical treatment for some of those young people who are going through some form of transition, or for that matter, even to the point now of saying that our Black history, I remember when the College Board, which is a national organization, came out and promoted the idea of the advanced African American history class for students who were involved with dual enrollment. And now the governor came out and said that they rejected it because they say that our history had no value. And it's amazing. And then, of course, I guess you could say the final straw was his decision to try to promote an idea that said that slaves personally benefited from skills that they learned during slavery, as opposed to recognizing the heinous nature of slavery and how it affected, people, our ancestors. And of course, some 240 plus years of enslavement without being paid one penny for that work. And now he wants to teach a false narrative saying that there were slaves who personally benefited because they learned skills that they could later use being blacksmiths or whatever the other host of things that, again, a false narrative. But again, I commend the leadership of Alpha for making that decision. And I just read today in a press release that the Association of Black Engineers has now followed up, and they have decided to move their 2024 and 2025 conferences out of the state of Florida for those very same reasons that, AFIA decided that it was inappropriate for us to support an agenda that seems to denigrate Black people and people of color. I mean, even down to the whole immigration issue as well. This guy is doing some things that are just totally off the chain, as we would say, to cause literally looking down. I mean, casting aside the great work. And he's also, of course, is in another area. Similarly, he has come out so strong against diversity, equity, and inclusion. And even today, again, another he's in litigation with Disney Corporation, one of the largest employer of people here in the state of Florida, and it's a place where people come to live out their magical dreams, as we say. And now his most recent appointee to this oversight board has now said that, we're going to make it illegal on Disney property to promote the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But again, these are far right-wing theories. I mean, it's amazing that, they are coming after people who literally were kids, Black, white, brown, Asian. Young people have learned how to get along with each other. They're learning the importance of, recognizing that we all bring something different to the table, but it's what has made America into, whether you call it a melting pot or whether you call it a salad bowl. These things have been good for America, but now we've got people who seem to want to snatch the rug out from under any type of opportunity for multiculturalism.
Right. Very much so. And it just bears that, it bears to me the conversation of, if we had to implement something like diversity, why do you think canceling it would be a good idea? Why do you think snatching the funding would be a good idea? And not only snatching the funding, But you won't, as a governor, you won't even give educational institution, those people who specialize, those people who are supposed to be experts in their area, because that's what you came back and said when you decided to change the history curriculum, the African American history curriculum. You said you listened to the experts, but these same experts are telling you diversity is needed, diversity training is needed, but now those experts don't matter.
Mm. 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 You know, what else is also interesting? They passed a bill in this recent legislative session promoting the importance of teaching Asian American history. And they're infusing that into the high school and secondary education curriculum.
Right.
But on the other hand, you say you're infusing it's Asian American history. But on the other hand, you are seeking to destroy the program or severely limit and handicap teachers who want to teach the truth about Black history, ergo American history.
Right. Makes no sense.
And yet he even understand that he had he tried to reach out to Vice President Kamala Harris and tried to get her into a debate on this particular issue, because she came out very strongly against it and said this was wrong. And I'm glad that she made a choice not to engage him in any kind of debate, because you in effect would be validating his stupidity, and also you basically, he was looking for some soundbite that he could use on the presidential campaign trail. And so people are beginning to better understand that this man has an agenda that is not an American agenda. When we think in terms of Americanism that promoted the idea of, you know, our best, our brightest, our strongest, he's instead trying to create a different kind of atmosphere, which would in effect wipe out those who have the ability to showcase their talents, and the idea that he knows what's best for all of us. Amazing.
Right. And you know what gets me about particularly him as a politician is that we run, and when we run for office, we say the will of the people, listening to the voters. But it's ironic when we get in office, we stop listening to those people, those very people.
Well, and of course, now this will affect, while it doesn't specifically affect maybe college level courses that you are engaged in, but you mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show that you teach young people at a variety of levels. I mean, you've talked about your training areas that you're dealing with security, and you mentioned briefly about your work at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. I mean, that's young people come from all over the world to learn flight and learn aircraft and learn aviation, learn these various skills that's going to propel them to great careers. And even that alone is a very diverse population that you're dealing with. But to what extent do you anticipate that any of these kinds of things may affect the work that you do?
I don't expect it, because on a collegiate level, it's quite different. Courses are designed with intents in mind. So the only way that I could see that affected is if the college comes back and restructures the vertical curriculum for every course, because it's embedded in there. You know, especially in a historically Black college and university, we have so many forms of African American history that we offer as a course, as electives. And then in other universities such as PWIs or predominantly white universities, there are courses on history and even African American history. So unless the university makes a conscious decision to come back and restructure the entire curriculum or course, I don't see it having such as a great impact as it's having on our impressionable young minds that are going through grade and secondary schools.
Yeah. And, you know, I understand that they pushed through a ban on diversity, equity, inclusion programs in all state or public, what we refer to as public universities. And, of course, we know that he has tried to change and transform some of our state public colleges into these conservative think tanks, and has put people that might be called as cronies into these positions of authority on boards, and in leadership roles, and even to the point of trying to push for one of his legislative supporters to become the president of one of the institutions down south. But that board, because this guy didn't even make the final cut, and when he didn't make the cut, the governor and his education commissioners literally shut down the process of the presidential search. And, just another example of some of the things that he is engaged in that are politically driven more so than looking out for what, as you stated earlier, what's in the best interest of the general, of the masses of the people here in the state of Florida. I know that tell our listeners again some of the other areas that you are involved in. You mentioned about your security training, but you're also a trainer for mediation and mediator training. And so elaborate on some of those many areas that you're involved with in your entrepreneurial /educational /training programs.
All right. It's interesting that we take a turn here, because in talking about diversity, one of the courses that I provide certifications for is Florida Supreme Court mediators, particularly family, circuit, and county, which are the ones that I provide training for. With those trainings, we provide mediation services to individuals who are going through legal battles. And it is an alternative dispute resolution, one in an effort not to backlog the court, but also to give the parties an opportunity to be in control of the outcome of their legal case. And one of the, while we focus on conflict resolution skills and trying to help the parties to resolve their conflict, giving them guidance and also boundaries for how to argue a case and how to get the other party to hear what it is that you have to say. As a mediator, we have to have a large diversity skill set in order to be able to reach the parties that sit across from us. Because oftentimes, the parties sit across from us may not believe like we do, may not speak like we do, may not look like we do, but yet we still have to have a unique skill set to be able to converse with them and to get them to buy into the mediation process. So even just understanding that if you rip the fabric of diversity out, you're ripping out a skill set that I need that gives people a fair chance within these systems of structure, these systems of court systems. So, just all the way around, if we think about the effect largely, it really harms our society. But I am excited that I never knew as a little boy that a role such as a mediator would exist for somebody like me. I never even thought that my name would be listed in something of the Florida Supreme Court, and that's the other unique piece, is that I provide direct training for them. They call me to lecture in their programs. And so not only do I get to lecture in my own programs and run my own programs under their name, they call me to lecture in theirs. And so, I get to live this life. That's what I tell people. I get to live this life. I get to do this. This is what I get to do with my 24 brand new hours every day. And I'm just excited that I get to do this. I run the mediation. I also provide, I just recently got approved by the Florida Department of Education to provide private investigation courses for new private investigators. So I am now rolling those out for individuals who want to. You heard me earlier say I do have a private investigation agency, and I do myself maintain a private investigation license for the state of Florida. I'm also, I also have the same when it comes to private security. I have a private security agency, and I also have a private security school. So I'm mirroring the same thing with the private investigation. So so many things going on that I get to do.
Like I said, you got 29 hours in your day as opposed to 24. And then you didn't even touch on the fact that you do some voiceovers.
Yes.
I know you told me about that and how you're being used in those settings because you got that very solid voice, and how there are those who have hired you to do voiceovers on radio and in other arenas. And then you also are doing motivation speaking.
That is true. I now that snuck up on me because people always told me, hey, you have a radio voice. I'm like, I don't even know what that means, So after some time went on, people were inviting me out to come and speak and do other things, and I ended up becoming what I think is a very desired motivational speaker, where I actually get paid for doing this, and I would do it for free, but I get paid for doing it. So I get to travel. I mean, I've been state to state traveling throughout our country speaking. I mean, I've just been afforded a unique opportunity. But somewhere in there, someone said or recognized and said I had a unique voice. And so I've been doing voiceovers. I still haven't gotten used to the term voice of God, but
watch out. Who's that guy? That's
Morgan
Freeman. Watch out, Morgan Freeman. You got some competition coming your way.
I know. Somebody asked me that. They were like, could you be our voice of God? And I'm like, what in the world? So, I have 2 voice of God speaking engagements coming up in the very near future here. So, I mean, this is what I get to do. Who wouldn't love a life like this?
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Wow. We are, this time has flown by that because you have such a wide range of skill sets. And like you say, you get to live a very powerful life, which you both in purpose and in passion. So any final comments that you'd like to share with our listening audience? Because again, that's the thing about Radio Land. You don't ever know who's listening in. And we've got a pretty wide ranging audience there. But any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners, and maybe you could give them a word of encouragement as we begin to wrap up here tonight.
One of the things that stick with me, and these are 2 phrases that I will always incorporate in everything that I'm saying. One is be so good at what you do until people can't ignore you. That means be authentically you. Be your true self. Use the skill set that you have in your hand. Each one of us have a skill set. And if we use the skill set in our hand, we don't have to work too hard at being somebody else or having the imposter syndrome, because we're doing what comes naturally to us. So my encouragement is to be so good at what you do until people can't ignore you. My second would be strive to get on top, because the bottom is already overcrowded. Just look up, keep working hard every day, consistently get up, put one foot in front of the other. Don't worry about who's in front of you running faster than you. Don't worry about being left behind, because the race is not given to the weak. Neither is it given to those who are slow. But if you just hang in there, if you just keep on pushing, you will make it there, and you will make it in the time frame that you are meant to be there. So hang in there. Don't get discouraged. Stand on the ground that you are on. Be bold and speak up. And as the old folks used to tell us, use your chest and speak up, and stand your ground, and just watch and see what happens in your life, because you stuck to it.
Wow. Well, folks, I guess you can see why I brought Dr. Chester Wilson here as our guest for tonight, because indeed he's a man of many talents and many gifts. And as you can hear from the variety of things that you heard him get a chance to talk about tonight, that indeed he is a man to be reckoned with. And of course, he's using his skills, gifts and talents to be able to make a difference here in our world. So, Dr. Wilson, thank you again for being our guest tonight. And we certainly hope and pray that all will continue to go well with you, and that you will continue to impact the lives of people at all ages, be it young, be it old, be it in school or not, and help to make a difference in this world. Again, I say thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And so, folks, there you have it. We are another edition of the Judge Hubert Radio Hour has come. Wow, this time passes so quickly. Got to be the fastest hour in radio. I've enjoyed it tonight, and certainly we look forward to having an opportunity for you all to come back and be with us. Share with your friends that not only is this live radio show available here, but it is, of course, being converted to a podcast that you can access at any point in time and share with others. For those who, you've been influenced by Dr. Wilson. And certainly if you want to get in contact with Dr. Wilson, you can check out his website, C. Wilson at the CWConsultingFirm.com. and, of course, give a chance to be able to have him come and talk to your audience and be able to motivate those individuals, be it young, be it old, because, indeed, he's got much to say, as you can tell, and he's definitely making an impact upon the lives of people. I think in the words of one of my mentor friends, Dr. Matt King Carter, indeed, I truly believe that you listening with us tonight, you have indeed, as he said, never go to bed as ignorant as you were when you got up this morning. Every day, you ought to learn something new. I know you've learned a lot tonight just listening into the live story of Dr. Chelsea Wilson. Until next time, I'll say unto you, God bless you all, and good night.